Hello and welcome to another My Aspie Marriage video. And even though I've been referring to my husband as my husband in all of the other videos, for the most part we weren't actually married yet. We got married at the 10-year mark, and I was really stressed about that because I knew a number of couples who had also been together for a really long time, got married on their 10th year anniversary and ended up splitting up. So I was a little bit kind of superstitious about it. I was feeling really anxious about it, thinking that it was like a bad omen or something. There was not a lot of pressure on my part, on my side of the family, to get married. In fact, I'm pretty sure that my family didn't want me to marry him and they just wanted me to run for the hills, to be honest. The pressure was coming from his side of the family. His mum in particular. We had children, or at least we had one at that stage, and she was really feeling like we should tie the knot. Like, why are you having children and you're not married yet? So there was a fair whack of pressure from his side of the family. And I'm a pretty calm and casual person. I was just rolling with it. Right from the very beginning, actually it was probably in those really long phone calls we used to have when we were courting, he had talked about how he didn't believe in marriage. It was just a piece of paper and he didn't want to bother with that, do all the hoo-ha that's involved just for that piece of paper. And again, I'm pretty casual. I was neither here nor there. I wasn't one of those girls who had this fantasy dreams of this giant wedding with the, the ball gown and the blah, 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 blah. That was just not how I rolled. So I took it as it came. We got married or we didn't. It meant neither here nor there to me. And one time we were talking to one of our friends or his family, I can't even remember who it was, to be honest, and they were saying something about marriage and why aren't you married yet and things like this, and he'd said to them, oh, because she doesn't want to get married. And I was like, hey, I said to him, I've never said such a thing. In all of the time we are together, I have never said such a thing. I said you were the one who was saying that you didn't want to get married because it was just a piece of paper and who cares. Anyway, somehow or another this meant that, we were going to go through with it. We talked about marriage. We talked about starting the process and things like this, but I've never actually said to him what made you want to, what made you change your mind. That's never really been discussed. And I guess probably doesn't even really matter. What happens, happens. Anyway, so it's the 10-year mark and we decide to get married. Now I'll just explain to you my mindset at this point in time. I was going insane at this stage. Keep in mind, as I've said numerous times before, I had no idea he was on the spectrum. At this stage, I am going insane trying to figure out how he ticks, why he does the things he does, why he says the things he says, why he keeps losing his temper, why he keeps stressing about everything, why he's doing the put-downs and the critiques and the fault-finding, and I was just losing my mind, racking my brain trying to figure this out. And talking to anybody and everybody. I mean, short of pulling strangers up on the street and going, hey, can you explain this? I was talking to everybody I could find. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, of course, is because when I went to the cake lady, the lady who made our cake, she said something like, oh, you're so lucky to have a man who XYZs, right? And I don't know how she came up with this statement that she made, but I said to her, oh no, That's not at all what my man is like. And then while I was there sampling these cakes, I was talking to her about the complications that we'd been facing. And to this day, I feel so embarrassed by that. Like, she's practically a perfect stranger. And I'm there just going, bleh. Talking about all of our struggles and issues and things. And I would have been thinking and hoping, as I had with everybody, maybe this woman will know what's going on, you know. And so I was talking to, as I said, anybody and everybody who would listen, because I was so desperate for answers. I've mentioned before that I had boyfriends and such, and I'd never met anybody like him who was doing the things that he was doing, who operated the way that he was operating. For example, he was so bothered by me not following his recommendations. And that was something like, he wanted me to hang washing out very specific ways. Lots of different ways. This much apart, and these things hung that way, and this thing hung that way, in this direction, and yada yada yada. This time of the morning, and then bring it in that time of the day, and blah 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 blah. He had this just a big long list of ways I wasn't doing the washing right. And I'm on autopilot when I'm doing the washing. I just go out and hang it up the way that I've always done, you know, muscle memory. And I was just thinking, it just does not matter. It's washing. Who cares? You know, and so I couldn't understand his angst. And it was perpetual, this perpetual angst. And then him getting aggro because I wouldn't follow his recommendations. And the washing is just one example. It was just this constant rhetoric with him. You're never following my recommendations, you're never following my recommendations, you're never following my recommendations. And I was just like, they just don't matter in the scheme of things. Anyway, so I'm there chatting to this cake lady about our woes, hoping that she would have some insight. And God bless her, I mean, she was the epitome of respect and patience. She didn't know me from a bar of soap. I walked out of there and she was probably thinking, what the hell? The cakes were just delicious and she did an amazing job. So, yeah, God bless her. Anyway, I didn't get my answer. She had no idea what I was talking about. She was just the same as every other person out there I'd ever spoken to who said, I don't understand him. I've never met anybody like that either. And most people would say to me, my husband would never do that. And so I still didn't have my answers. No matter all of the people I spoke to, I didn't have my answers. And so you might be wondering at this stage, why get married? If it's so stressful that you're just blabbering on to any Tom, Dick or Harry, why get married? And that was just because I took it as one day at a time. I was just so chilled. Like it bothered me and upset me and stressed me out. But I guess there was always a part of me that figured, I will figure it out one day. I will have my answer and I will know. A lot of my family and friends would say to me, you can't change him and you can't fix him. They kept telling me I was in the relationship to fix him, and they kept calling me Miss Fix-It and you're never going to fix him. And that was their theory about why I was staying. But it wasn't at all to do with fixing or changing. I mean, yes, there were certain personality traits that he really needed to stop. Not just for me, but for the children. And also, if he was to leave me and go into another relationship, he really needed to lose the rage, for example. Nobody was going to be able to deal with that. And the only reason that I dealt with it as well as I did is because I'm such a chill pill. Because I'm so much more calmer than the average person, so that when he would rage, I could walk away from that, close the door, put my music on, listen to all that doof doof, and just drown all the thoughts out. You know, I just had that sort of skill, I guess. Anyway, so it wasn't so much as fixing him, but just trying to understand what made him tick, because there was also that really nice side of him. There's always that really nice side. Those times where you're just getting along and he's a good guy and he's being nice and sweet and giving, and if I need anything like some milk, he's up the street getting it. You know, if my car is empty, he'll go and fill it up for me. If it needs a wash, he'll go and wash my car. He mows the lawns, he does the dishes, he does the washing. He's very hands-on. We call him Daddy Daycare because he's really into, you know, hands-on with the children and things like this. So there were always the good things going on with the bad things. So I didn't really want the relationship to end. I just wanted it to be better. And I guess you could call me the ultimate optimist, because I was so sure that it could be, if only. If only he'd have a light bulb moment, ping, and realise I shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, so that's the headspace at the time that we had decided to get married. And I'd said to him, you do the honeymoon and I'll organise the other stuff. The food and the venue and all of that kind of stuff. And 3 months prior to the wedding about to happen, he comes up to me and he says, are you going to start organising anything? And I said, what do you mean, anything? And he says, well, for the wedding, are you going to start organising stuff? And again, I said, I don't know what you mean. Which parts? And he says, all of it. And I said, oh, I've already started. And I show him my list of things that I've been ticking off. You know, I said to him, I've already started. And he says, oh, I thought you hadn't started because you haven't been stressed and running around like a headless chook and being all Brazilla, you know? And I said, no, I've got this. I'm just calm like that. This is how I operate. I'm not a stress head at all. I just plod along and just go with the flow. We did have a funny moment where, I mean, we laugh about it now, but at the time it was pretty stressful. When we were seeing the celebrant, we had to choose our vows, and she had all these templates, like A4 templates, and we'd read through them and say, no, that one's a bit too wishy-washy, no, that one's a bit this, no, that one's a bit that, you know. And then we got to one that we liked and we said, yeah, I like this one, show it to him, he likes that one, we're good to roll. However, and this is what we laugh about now, we were crossing out all of the words that weren't relevant to us. So we've got this A4 piece of paper and it will say something like respects her values or respects my values or something. And I was saying to her, I'll cross that part out, he's got no respect for my values. And she's like, okay. And then he's going, listen, no, cross that word listen out, she never listens to me. And so there's this lady who does the vows crossing out all these words. She must have been sitting there thinking, I give them 6 months. This couple is whack. Like, who are these people crossing out all of the words that actually have value and just going with, I do. So funny. Anyway, so as I say, we laugh about it now, but at the time, I just remember reading those vows and thinking, oh, cross that word out, cross that word out, cross that word out. You know, we were kind of agitated. And it was really kind of ironic because come the day, we felt so like loving and special towards each other. It was really kind of interesting. I hadn't expected that. For a starter, I'd expected him to be indifferent because indifferent was the emotion that he mostly goes with. So I was expecting that he'd be like, I'm getting married, who cares? There she is, my bride, whoopee-doo, you know. He was not a complimenter. He was not one of those guys that said you look gorgeous or beautiful or pretty or anything like this. So when I rock up and I'm in my wedding dress and he gives me a compliment, tells me that I look really nice and that he was so impressed that I'd chosen a red dress and yada yada yada. You know, I could just see it in his face. He was really happy. He was really, you know, kind of mushy for him. you know, he's a relatively stoic fella, but you could just see he was kind of mounting at the knees a little bit there. And even I was feeling really warm and fuzzy, which surprised us both. And we just rolled with it. We just went with the flow. And we get married and then we go on our honeymoon, and it was really, really cool. Anyway, so the wedding itself, it was pretty cool. We had it here. I did the cooking. So I got up in the morning and prepared all this food, and then my friends came over and I got dressed and changed, and then we all walked to the park where the people were, and it was a really nice day. It was really lovely. All up, it cost us $6,000. That's including the honeymoon. Remember in the finance video I talked about how I'm really good with money? This is an example of how I'm really good with money. I didn't want a 50 billion grand wedding where I was in debt. I mean, some people's weddings cost as much as like a deposit for a house, and I'm like, you could have used that money as a deposit for a house. So I didn't want the wedding to rip us a new a-hole, as my brother says. I wanted just a nice sort of simple, calm, you know, stress-free, roll with it, have a great old time kind of day. So yeah, that was our wedding. It was really nice. It was really lovely. We had a good time. The food was great. His family had stayed over the night or a couple of nights before, so they helped me prep, and it was just really nice and really special, which is just amazing considering the conflict that we were having up to that point. I had realised by the time the honeymoon came along, I had realised that I was around 3 months pregnant. And again, if you recall in my parenting video, I talked about how he treats me really nicely while I'm pregnant. Well, again, I had that. So the next 6 or so months were just this bliss, because we'd gotten married, we'd gone on this honeymoon. Granted, the honeymoon was a cruise, and when you've got morning sickness, that's kind of a clash. I spent many a day driving the porcelain bus, as they say. But nonetheless, it was a nice honeymoon. It was really kind of cool, and he was really lovely and sweet and nice for the next so many months because I was pregnant. So it was really a kind of nice time. And in saying that, I should mention as well that that was another thing that we were experiencing. We would have these moments of constant conflict, and then we'd have sort of a 1 month to a 6 month period, or sometimes even longer, where we were just blissfully getting along. And I can never really describe the hows and whats and why fors that was happening. I mean, obviously with the pregnancies, that's easy enough to acknowledge, but not all of our blissful, happy times were related to being pregnant. So I can't really explain that, but it's just how the marriage rolled. And again, I ask you, has it been that way with you? Have you had similar sort of situations where you might have all manner of conflict and then you're just getting along, then the conflict arises, then you're getting along? Maybe it's working that way for you as well. And when it comes to your wedding, had you experienced similar things? Had it been this really wonderful, blissed day where you felt loved and cherished and that sort of thing? Did you go through the funny thing with us, like crossing out all the words in the vows? I feel like that's probably never happened to anybody but us. I'm not sure. I'd really be curious to know if anybody else out there has ever had that, or ever done that, you know, like us. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that the celebrant would be most impressed that 14 years later we are still together, like miracle of miracles. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video.